While many of the refugees coming to Maine are doing so for economic opportunity, others have come here because they felt they had no other choice.
They are escaping the crime, violence, or political retribution in their home countries that threatened their lives. They are asylum seekers. But
there are some at the State House who are asking, can we afford to keep welcoming these refugees? News Center Maine's Jack Mulmet is here with a look at this debate. Jack.
Oh, that's right, Brian and Amanda. That number is only expected to grow, and it's even starting to be on par with the number of homeless Mainers we are seeing throughout the state, which is partly why these last couple of years we have indeed seen more spending on asylum seeker services. But Republicans in the State House and Senate are saying Maine is spending too much money on social services for asylum seekers, claims such as giving free rent to asylum seekers for 2 years while homeless people are on the streets, and also that Governor Mills' administration wants to bring in 75,000 asylees to Maine by 2030. We set out to fact-check those claims.
Last week, we broke the biggest story of 2024. We don't feel like that really got the coverage that it deserves.
State House Republicans this month blasting the state's spending on asylum seekers over the last few years, bringing it up repeatedly in their weekly press conferences.
And these numbers are shocking.
They cite numbers like more than $3 million to give asylum seekers free rent in Brunswick and up to $34 million spent overall to house asylum seekers, and 75,000 migrant workers coming into Maine by 2030. For some context, we're taking a closer look into how these numbers stack up against other spending. According to documents from Maine Housing, we can see the numbers corroborating some of what Republicans are quoting. Take the $34 million spent on asylees claim. Yes, it is true. It's taken out of a $55 million pool of spending by Maine Housing over a 3-year period. This funding does not include Section 8 vouchers, which is the primary source of housing assistance provided by Maine Housing, and asylum seekers can't access Section 8, but homeless people can. And that's why we see $34 million of that $55 million going to house asylum-seeking families. It's something Maine Housing says accounts for only 3% of its total spending.
The fact that 63% of it is going to asylum seekers just seems crazy.
The next claim by Maine Republicans is that asylum seekers in Brunswick will get free housing for up to 2 years. This is true. According to Maine Housing, many of these families have young children and do not qualify for any other kind of housing assistance currently available. And while there are delays in getting work permits, Maine Housing says once asylum-seeking families get those, they would work to pay rent. Maine Republican leadership isn't convinced asylees would do that.
With 2 years of free housing, you don't really have to work if you don't choose to.
And finally, Republicans have repeatedly said Governor Mills' administration wants to bring in 75,000 new Mainers by 2030. And we can quickly prove this is just not true. According to the source material, that 75,000 worker request is by, quote, increasing participation among Maine's existing population and attracting new people from out of state. And I did speak to Republican leadership today and told them that Maine Housing claims their spending on asylum seekers is a small fraction of everything they've spent money on for the last 3 years. Now, Republicans didn't seem shocked and said it's more about seeing funding for new Mainers while we still have homeless people sleeping on the streets. Now, when we want to talk about things like who gets shelter, asylum seekers or homeless people, most of that is policy decisions decided by city councils and even in the legislature and not from Maine Housing.
Jack Mulmet tonight live with us in the studio on a conversation that will continue for a while. Jack, thank you.